research we do will very probably have an impact in the way that energy is accessed and used around the world. And if we want to ensure that that impact is positive, then we have to understand the huge diversity of energy practices around the world. You know, in my view, we can only design energy technologies and interventions well if we understand how people engage with energy services. And that means also recognizing our own assumptions and our own understandings that we as energy researchers bring with us to our research. So one of the best ways to challenge our assumptions is to confront them with alternatives and to avoid groupthink. So if our groups themselves are diverse, then we're better placed to design for the abundant diversity of the world around us. Sorry, I will try and stay pointed towards the microphone. Maybe I'll move the microphone so it's easier. So that's the theory. You know, in practice, we know that energy research communities don't actually reflect that well the makeup of broader society. For a start, we're overrepresented by engineers. Sorry, that's a joke. You're allowed to laugh. But jokes aside, the stats aren't very reassuring, right? Here are some stats that you may have seen before because we've shared them and the other networks have shared them. That once you dig into a little bit into the stats, it's clear that there is inequality. This is just highlighting that even if we look at the number of awards, sometimes it looks quite like the situation's improving, but the amounts of awards are still very unequal between different groups, amongst ethnic groups as well. This is award rates across UKRI, so obviously that varies very much between different research councils and different disciplines, but even so, it's quite unequal. And if we look at EPSRC in particular, if we look at the studentship data even, we can see that it's really gender skewed. It's also skewed in terms of age group, in terms of ability, and in terms of ethnicity. So, you know, these are systematic issues. It's not just about supporting discriminated researchers, but obviously that's really important, but it's about changing the system. And we have evidence that this works. Here's an example of a paper showing that. But I have to tell you that 3 of the advertised speakers for this event pulled out at the last minute. And amongst the reasons were company fears about bad publicity and deprioritization of this. And we're not quite sure if that's deprioritizing EDI or deprioritizing coming to an EDI event hosted by the networks. But either way, it's very disappointing. You know, I think there's been quite a lot in the media you've probably seen over the past few years, perhaps not immediately at the moment, but over the past kind of two to 3 years, a bit of a backlash and some companies being less public about what they're doing. I think in fact, it doesn't mean that they're doing less, it means that they're less willing to talk about it. But I am pleased to say that that is not reflected in the position of universities and funders. They are still very committed to diversity and inclusion. But it does mean it's not going to get easier for us to address this problem more generally. Obviously, EDI Plus and Ignite were specifically funded to challenge that and to ensure that we do become more inclusive. And their funded projects and fellowships were designed to show how change can be achieved. So today, you'll have an opportunity to hear from some of those researchers who can tell you what's worked for them, as well as some of the unexpected obstacles that they've met along the way, and also where they see real opportunities for improvement. So I'm sure they'll be really happy to tell you all about the kind of training and resourcing that's helped them, and also what they can suggest for future programs. So in brief, we have a really fantastic lineup of speakers, despite the changes, in fact, possibly even better, despite the changes.